Welcome. On behalf of your entire financial team at Paul R. Reed Financial Group, we want to extend a very warm welcome to our online event today. And it's all about protecting your wealth. In this era of cyber protection, cybersecurity is extremely important. You know, we have a registration today totaling 229 viewers in 15 states, 192 of you in the state of Washington. So thank you so much for attending. You know, this is part of our peak program that all of you are entitled to as clients of Paul Reed Financial Group, planning, education, advice, and consulting. You've all been involved in the planning process, which of course begins with retirement feasibility, looks at helping you understand and providing advice on key decisions, such as major expenses, such as Medicare and Medicare planning, RMD planning, required minimum distribution, income management. We even have support and services for those that are needing continuing care retirement planning as a consultant as well, Medicare consultant. Of course, that goes all the way through our estate transition planning. And estate transition, as you know, we do legal coordination as well as beneficiary education. And this is that E part, that education part. The education is certainly during our meetings with one of our advisors. It's education, our annual client event. And then we have our client education series that rolled out several years ago. Tim's heading that series, and that's involved in really providing topical information on areas that we believe are relevant to you in the planning process. Our objective, our goal is to provide information, education, and consulting on really every decision that touches your finances from retirement on. And this is part of that process. So we're excited today to have a presentation which we think is very relevant, and that's really on cybersecurity. So what we're going to do is I'm going to turn this over to Tim. He's going to introduce the topic, and Tim Kimmel, of course, partner in the firm, chief financial advisor, and he'll be bringing out the topic that we have. And once again, you'll see that from our resources that we have, the resources on our website, the resources that we provide during our meetings, and the resources such as the speaker you'll see today. So Tim, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Paul, and welcome everybody. So glad you could join us today. As Paul mentioned, we have I think a very interesting topic, and one that I think we can all relate to, right? We've all had issues with regards to maybe some online questions or security issues that have come up even in our own lives or in our families. So very relevant topic. Happy to have a really great speaker as well today, and I think you'll really enjoy what she has to say. Just to add on to what Paul mentioned, very appropriately, our peak services obviously are what I'll call holistic in our viewpoints, right? We're obviously trying to focus on, you know, a lot of you focus on investment management and that kind of thing, but that's certainly extremely important. But as Paul mentioned, there's a lot of other services that we provide as a firm that ultimately are available to you throughout your retirement journey. And again, some of these items that Paul brought up may not necessarily be applicable right now, but might be applicable, you know, 5 or 10, 15 years down the road. So those services are always available to you all, right, whenever they're needed. So those are resources that we're collecting information, obviously, that we feel is applicable and will be helpful, and you know, really a resource, quite honestly. Another thing I'll mention too, these events, and as you know, we do our education series of events. We try to have typically 3 or 4 every year. Typically 1 every quarter. At the capstone event is our client event at Newcastle, typically in the 4th quarter. And these events, like I mentioned, are really designed to be educational, but also designed for you to share with friends, colleagues, coworkers, family. Again, we want this to be accessible, and this information we think is applicable to lots of different folks. And so feel free to share this information. We don't do any advertising. Obviously, everything's through word of mouth. And we've been blessed, obviously, to have a lot of referrals from many of you that have also become our clients. So that's great. So again, don't be shy. Share the information. If you feel like this is applicable, again, we encourage that. A couple of housekeeping issues that I want to go over first before we kind of get into the meat of our conversation. One is that our session today is designed to go about 50 to 60 minutes. We're designed to try to keep this on target as far as that time. We want to respect your day and obviously your time. There are going to be about 30 to 40 minutes, 30 to 35 minutes of prepared content. And then the rest is really for you, kind of in the way of a Q&A session. So for those of you that maybe are new to Zoom or maybe not familiar, If you scroll across your screen, there is a Q&A icon that you can click onto. There's a chat box that pops up. You can just type in your question, and I'll be collecting those throughout the event. And then at the end, 15, 20 minutes, we'll be able to answer or address questions that you bring up. And so don't be shy. This is really designed to be a participation event. And we want to hear from you as far as questions that you have. So that's something we have a prepared section of our event today that's designed specifically, again, to address questions. And so we encourage that. If we can't get to all of your questions, either one of the team will reach out to you, or if we can't answer, maybe we'll have Tanya reach out to you as well to answer those specifically. But again, take advantage of that. Second little housekeeping issue is that Tanya has some great resources available. We want to make those resources, again, available to you easily. And so we're going to have this event recorded as we do all of our events. They are replayed on our website. If you missed past events, take advantage of those because they are great resources, as Paul mentioned. But also I'll mention too that also not only is this recording going to be useful, but there's also some, again, useful resources, again, that Tanya's made available very graciously. One is the securities tips and checklist. So online security tips and checklist pamphlet that contains some really informative information. There's also some classes that Tanya teaches. I believe there'll be a link to some of her resources, and also a link to her firm if you have any additional questions or want to go deeper into some of these topics. So that'll be available once we get our approval through this event. We'll send out an email to everybody with those links and also a link to our replay. So hopefully that'll be useful and helpful for everybody. And then the third little housekeeping item is that we are going to be doing a bit of an online question here that we want your participation. So Emily, if you could post that to our screen here. So if you could click on what's applicable. The question is, how do you personally store your passwords? So if you just click on, what's applicable. Maybe there's a couple that are, but we just want to kind of gauge a little bit of how you're currently managing your online security and passwords. So, so with that, couple of other things I'll mention topically. And as we get into the subject matter, some really interesting statistics regarding online security. And here's a couple of statistics. They're scary, but again, the reason why we're doing these educational events is hopefully to, again, be a resource for you to kind of cut this off at the pass before hopefully these events become an issue personally or become big events for you. But here's some statistics that I thought were pretty interesting and maybe even a bit frightening. Statistically, there's 2,200 cyber attacks in America each day. This equates to one cyber attack every 39 seconds. So pretty sobering there. Second, 95% of data breaches are due to human error. So that's something that again, interesting to talk through. Third is 93% of all data breaches are motivated by financial gain. So clearly there's a financial opportunity that criminals kind of see in the context of our online security. Less than 5% of online hackers or cyber criminals actually are caught or even apprehended. 53% of online users haven't changed their passwords in 12 months. I can be a victim to that sometimes. 57% of online users reportedly have written down their passwords somewhere, right? A sticky note, maybe notes in your cell phone, something to that degree. Let's see, 44% of users recycle passwords. So again, we use our same passwords. We have a tendency of doing that just so we remember them. But again, I'm guilty of that too. 62% of users have shared their password either over an email or text message. In the United States, there's an interesting one. We've had 759% more victims of cyber crime than the next highest country, which think about that for a second, folks. 759% more victims of cyber crime than the next highest country. If you're curious, the next highest country is Canada. 10, this will be our last one here. 60% of Americans do not know what steps to take after being a victim of a data breach. So again, part of our hope and prayer today is equip you, right? Educate. And that's part of our biggest defense, we believe, is just to be informed. And again, these statistics can be scary, but again, the goal is to help kind of head these off at the pass. So without any further ado, let me introduce you to our guest speaker, Tanya Meronk. And I'm going to read this just so I get it right. She's the co-founder of Techretaries. And Tanya's formal education is in film creation. And through that, she saw a need for advertising with new projects, being pushed out quickly and easily. So first, websites for her own projects, and then for other people. Web design led her to IT, being one of the office's, tech person, right? We all have somebody in our life. Maybe for myself, it's my kids. Maybe for you, it's your grandkids or kids. But Tanya was that go-to person for her companies. Through late nights and sheer tenacity, Tanya was self-taught techie and who has a knack for seemingly, helping people with their tech problems and even maybe some other related emotional events that come with being a victim of cybercrime. Bridging the gap between, digital security and she has a mission, fulfilling it one client at a time. So with that said, I'll pass it on, Tanya, to you. And we're so thrilled to have you. Welcome, and take it over.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for that wonderful introduction and those great stats. I think those stats set us up really nicely for the presentation that I'm going to do today. I'll give you a format of what I'm going to talk about, just so you know what to expect. So I'm going to start with my company, talk a little bit about why I do what I do, and the approach that I have that might be a little different than any other tech support that you've encountered. Then we'll go into practical tips, and then I'll talk about some case studies with my clients, so real life case studies with my clients, and then I'll ask you a few questions to get you thinking. If you have any questions, like Tim said, throughout the presentation, at the bottom of your screen, there's a little Q&A button. You can hit that, type in your question, and then we'll get to those at the end. So I'm going to share my presentation here. All right, so everybody should be seeing that now. Okay. So, title of the presentation, Protect Your Wealth and Health with Online Security. One of the reasons I say protect your wealth and health is because over the years, I've encountered a lot of clients who, of course, lose money from scams and fraud, but the impact that it can have on their health is significant. You may have friends and family members, you yourself may have been the victim of a hack, someone stole money from you. And I have one client who was, she's still upset about it, and it's been years. So these practical tips will not only help you protect your wealth and your money, but also your mental health and your physical health. So let's get into it. My company is Techretaries. I own it with my husband. We were high school sweethearts, so we know each other very well. We decided to start this company in 2013 in New York City, and we moved to Seattle in 2016 for a different way of life. Our background is, in fact, in the creative arts, which I think is to our benefit because we work with a lot of creative people. We have very creative approaches to things. We do remote and in-person support here in Seattle and the surrounding area, and we're based in Fremont. If you know the neighborhood, it's the old hippie neighborhood. It's a great neighborhood. We love Seattle. We're both millennials. Don't hold that against us. But what that means is we straddle both worlds, the analog and the digital world. So we know what a VHS is, a fax machine, a CD. We know what an old rotary phone is, things like that. We're also neurodivergent. So that means we think outside the box. We think differently than most people. Our client base. So our client base is, in fact, ages 55 and above. We work a lot with retirees. We work a lot with families, business owners, whether that be sole proprietor or medium-sized business, small business. The majority of our users are Apple users, but we also take care of 10% of people who have Windows PCs. We work a lot with technophobes, which I don't personally like that word, but it could also, my clients usually self-describe themselves as technophobes or Luddites. So I'm very patient and kind when it comes to people who are afraid of technology. We also work a lot with engineers and doctors. For whatever reason, they are incredibly gifted in their fields, but they just need a little bit extra support when it comes to technology. We also work with artists and creatives, like I mentioned, because we tend to think outside the box and can translate technology very well. To give you some context on how we approach things, I want to talk about our core value. And this is going to inform the presentation and why I approached the concept of online security the way that I did. Our core value since the very beginning has always been be kind, be patient, and restart. And if you don't take anything away from this presentation, please take that with you. It is 90% of the tech support that I do. Being kind to people, being patient when things go wrong, and restarting, meaning step back. Take a breath, take a breather, take a walk, and come back to it. It's served us well throughout the last 10, 11 years of our business, and it serves our clients well. And you'll also notice that I'm very colorful, but I take security and tech support very seriously. The color is just for fun. All right, let's get into my top tips to protect your health and wealth with online security. Okay, so Tim already mentioned this as a stat. I think he said 44% of people reuse their passwords. And the caveat here is never reuse important passwords. So your Netflix account, probably not that important. Your Charles Schwab account, incredibly important. So I would say if you aren't going to use, say, a password manager and you are keeping these, even if you keep your passwords on paper, please don't reuse important passwords. Another caveat to this is oftentimes what I find my clients doing is they'll say, okay, Tanya, no, I don't reuse my passwords. I just add a exclamation point. I add a $sign. I change it from fluffy 123 exclamation to fluffy exclamation 123. You don't want to do that, primarily because when hackers discover your password, let's say on an online list, they were sold an online list of passwords from a data breach, you're on that list. What they'll do is they'll take the combination and they'll just change variants, common variants that people do. So common ones are like what I have here, where you just switch around a character. They'll change very, very common known things are like changing the 1 to an exclamation point or the O to a 0. So they'll take those variations and they'll run them through their computer program and they'll try to crack your account. So even if you're doing slight variations, I would say, good job, you are not reusing your password, but take it a step further and do a completely new password for every important account. My second tip for you, please use strong passwords. So I know most people roll their eyes like, Tanya, do I really have to do a special character? Do I really have to do a capital letter? Yes, yes, you do. You want incredibly complex passwords. The best passwords are in fact completely random. So by strong and unique, I mean random. Don't use common words, common phrases. If you're going to take the trouble of writing down your password, you might as well do something that is complex, like $6, capital J, lowercase u, completely random, because that's going to make it harder for your account to be hacked. The other thing you want to do is set up two-step verification. So another thing that my clients, oh, Tanya, do I really need to get a text every time I log in? Yes, you do, because then that is your online account saying, hey, are you really you? We got this password, but are you really who you say you are? And the way of doing that is getting a text message sent to your phone or to your cell phone, phone number, to your email. They verify you are who you are, and then you can get into the account. That's great. Now, the next level you might see here is I say, set up two-step verification to text you on each sign in, or use an authenticator app. Now, if you don't know what an authenticator app is, that's okay. Set up the text message verifications, you're already one step ahead of the game. The authenticator app is taking your two-step verification to another level, because let's say, I don't know, somebody spoofs your SIM card and they can get a hold of your phone number. The authenticator app prevents even that from happening and them getting into your account. So that's a little more complex, I think, than I would want to get into in this conversation, but you can always ask me, you can email me later and we can talk about it. So next tip. So I've said to you, use strong passwords. I've said, don't reuse your passwords. You're like, Tanya, oh, this is going to be so much work. Okay. What I would highly recommend is use a password manager like 1Password or iCloud Keychain. The biggest benefits of this is that you stop remembering passwords. You offload your memory, and it actually is a huge relief to a lot of my clients. They're like, oh, great. I don't have to remember passwords. I don't have to continue making up passwords. I don't have to worry about my information being on scraps of paper or in my phone. I can just have it in a password manager, safe and secure. I love password managers. I've been using 1Password for a very long time. One of the benefits of a password manager, and Adam actually asked this question the other day, which is really helpful. One of the benefits is that not only is your password manager protected by 1Password, so you choose 1Password, it's a strong password, you use that password to get into 1Password, and then you have all your passwords there that are unique and secure. In addition to that 1Password you enter, your account is in fact protected by a secret key. So it's like you have the password you use to get in is the one lock, and then you have that deadbolt, which is the secret key. And the secret key is very long, it's random, and anybody who was to try to get into your 1Password account would need that secret key. So I usually recommend to my clients, you get an emergency kit when you sign up for 1Password. And by the way, I'm not affiliated with 1Password. I just love their product. But you get an emergency kit when you sign up. You print that out. You put it with your safety deposit box, your vault, wherever you keep your super secure information. And then on top of that, we add two-step verification. So you actually have 3 layers of protection on top of your password manager. I'm sure this question will come up in the Q&A, but 1Password has never been hacked. There are password managers out there that have been hacked. LastPass is one of them. So if you're on LastPass, I would encourage you to get onto 1Password. But 1Password has never been hacked. And then if you take these steps, the strong 1Password, you have the secret key and the 2-step, you've taken all the steps you need to protect your online security. I've been using it for a long time. I get all my clients on it. I can highly, highly, highly endorse this system. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So that was basically the essence of passwords and what you can do to protect your online accounts. But I want to take it even to a simpler level. I think Tim mentioned the stat that most breaches online are human error. So I want to talk about that stat. You probably do this already, but here's your reminder. Don't respond to calls or texts that you don't recognize. That's a lifesaver. So many of my clients have prevented hacks and scams and all kinds of things. Hackers aren't very sophisticated at the end of the day. They actually, most of the time, they're not even good enough to hack your passwords. They're just going to call you and see if you pick up. They're going to cast a wide net and see who bites. So they'll call or they'll text and they'll say, this is Netflix, or this is PayPal, or this is Best Buy, or whoever. You know, got to call us right away. Never respond to those things, ever, ever, ever. Even if you think it's serious, do yourself a favor and call the company directly and say, hey, did you call me? Did you text me? And take it from there. Most likely the answer will be, no, we did not. I also want to talk about physical mail. So I actually get, because I have techretaries.com as my website, I actually get physical mail saying your invoice is due on techretaries.com, call us right away. So that's actually something aside from online security to look out for, is if you get physical mail or letters that say you have a past due balance, call this number, never call the number, look up the company, verify on their website, and call them directly. You can also use Google to confirm the company that's sending you the information is legitimate. Here's another reminder. So this is a big one too. Do not answer emails or messages asking you for money, even if you recognize the sender. I'll tell you a quick story. I work with companies and I provide them tech support, and their accountant recently received an email from the boss saying it was the boss with an attachment that said, please pay this invoice right away. That employee walked into the boss's office, had the check ready, and said, can you please sign this? I need to pay this invoice. So even in larger companies, this can happen. But it happened because the accountant didn't in fact verify that it was the boss sending the email. How do you do that? In any case, whether you have an iPhone, iPad, Mac, Windows, it doesn't matter. You can always click on the name of the person that's sending and verify, is it in fact their email address? Is it in fact their phone number? Are these people who they say they are? Most of the time, what you'll see is some crazy random email address, Bob's chips and 123@gmail.com, something completely silly. And you'll know, okay, this isn't in fact the person who they say they are. I can send this to spam. And you always want to do that as well. Emails, for sure, send to spam. Don't delete them. You want to always send them to spam. The reason for that is because then you're telling your email system, let's say you have a Gmail, Yahoo, whoever, you're telling them, hey, look out for this. There's this kind of spam on the rise. You're telling their system to look out for that. And you're actually helping the community and helping everybody else who has a Gmail or a Yahoo know that this is out there. Because spam, fraud, all that stuff is changing every single day, but these are the little things that we can do to help prevent them from spreading. This is probably common knowledge, but I also wanted to mention this as well. Never click on a link you didn't request. So if someone sends you, this is a good one, a payment link. I had a client who got an email from Xfinity, Comcast, and it just so happened that that email was all purple font. So to me, it was very obvious. It was purple font. It said it was from Xfinity, but it looked like, a 10-year-old could have written it. And there was a link to pay her online bill. To me, it was obvious. To her, it was not. She clicked the link, she put in her credit card information, and she paid the bill. There was no bill. Had she not clicked that link, had she gone to Xfinity.com and signed into her online account, she could have seen whether or not her bill was past due. And she would have seen, no, it's not. I have zero balance. And she could have sent that email right to spam. So whenever you get a link, be very, very, very cautious. Most companies are not going to send you a link in an email. They're going to say, please sign into your account to XYZ. If you are concerned about security, I mean, you're here, so you are. But if you want some extra protection, you can install Malwarebytes. I love this program. It is great. They do a free version and a premium version. The free version allows you to manually scan your computer for any viruses, and it automatically quarantines it, meaning it just puts it in a separate space where it's inactive. It's fantastic. I've been using it for years. Macs, PCs, whoever can use it. this is specifically for your computer. Your phones generally don't need it unless you have an Android. You can use Malwarebytes, but an iPhone, generally speaking, you don't need a malware scanner. It's more important that you just ignore spam texts and spam phone calls. So Malwarebytes, it's like I said, it's free, does a scan. If you purchase a premium version, it'll scan in real time. So if you accidentally click a link and you download something that's bad, it'll quarantine it for you. So I highly recommend that as well. I already kind of mentioned this, but companies will never reach out to you first if you didn't request it. And what I mean by that is most companies aren't going to proactively call or text or email you without you reaching out to them first. So, don't be afraid to hang up the phone, delete a text message, send the email to spam, even if you get that little, tingling feeling on the back of your neck that this is suspicious. Just default to no, thank you. Okay, this is a good one. I like this one a lot because I don't think, and this goes back to when someone's sending you something, verifying they are in fact who they say you are. I get this question a lot where, how do I verify who they actually are? So what you want to look out for is misspellings. So oftentimes you see on my graphic here, you want to make sure that the web address is in fact chase.com, not chase.com with a Z or chase1.com. Oftentimes what hackers will do is they'll change the website just slightly. And what I mean by that is up at the top of your browser, making sure it says chase.com. When you click to see who sent it, if it's, oftentimes you'll see no reply at chase.com or something like that. That's what you're looking for. It's always the company name within the sender email. And the other thing you want to do is if you do click a link and you end up going somewhere and you don't know what it is, like the situation I described earlier with my client clicking on the credit card information, if it's asking for personal information, opt out, close the window, shut down the computer, walk away. You really don't want to give out personal information as often as you can, unless you recognize who's asking, right? So Paul Ried's asking for your email to register for a webinar. Great. You know who they are. You trust them. Give them your information, your email, your name, your phone number. But if it's somebody completely random, you don't want to give out that personal information. Now, my clients will often ask, what's the issue with giving out my name or my phone number? Well, what will happen is you may get on a list and then you will just get inundated with spam. So if you give out your email, just make sure you know who you're giving it to. If you give out your phone number, make sure you know who you're giving it to. We know for sure don't give out your social security number, but just as a reminder, don't give out your social security number ever. But even those personal tidbits of information can be pieced together to create a profile where an online hacker can use that to their advantage to then move forward and try to hack or scam you. So don't give out personal information. So the best ways to protect your identity, and I know I'm probably running short on time, so I'm going to breeze through a couple of these topics. The best way to protect your identity is, in fact, to freeze your credit. Now, a lot of people will ask me, Tanya, should I get, Norton LifeLock 360? Great. Should I sign up for American Express scam alerts? Fine. That's all great. But what you can actually do is freeze or lock your credit reports with TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. And what that'll do is it will stop anybody who tries to take out a mortgage on your behalf or a loan or a credit card. And unfortunately, anybody over 65 is a high target for that. So if you freeze your credit, you can stop them dead in their tracks. The other thing, like I mentioned already, is don't give out your social security number. Verify, verify, verify whoever's asking for that information. Excuse me, I'm gonna take a drink. You want to verify who's asking for that information first and foremost, and then go ahead. And my last tip, this is the best tip of all. Above all, trust your gut. Trust it. If you sense any resistance, if you sense any fear or urgency or aggression, whoever's calling or emailing or texting is trying to trick you. Back out right away. And even if I've had a client where the hacker, she had him on the phone, was not aggressive, but he started to turn the conversation to money, back out. So fear, aggression, urgency, or talking about money, back out of the situation. Shut down your computer, hang up the phone, delete the text, whatever it is. Trust your gut. That is your number one resource. So here's a quick review, and this is actually going to be available as a resource on the replay website, like Tim mentioned. And to give you some context, this is actually the card that we send out every year to our clients. We like to give them an informative card, not just the holiday card they can throw away, a resource that they keep. A lot of our clients keep the card next to them as a reminder while they're working at their desk. It's incredibly useful. So I hope that you go on the Paul Ried website and download it, print it out for yourself, and keep it as a resource. So I'm going to briefly talk about some case studies, and this kind of goes hand in hand with the stats that Tim was talking about. So hack and fraud case studies, keep in mind, all of these people are incredibly intelligent people. It has nothing to do with intelligence. But I want to talk a little bit about the case studies and how it happened, because it'll feed very nicely into these practical tips that I just gave you. So Maggie, she's 73 years old. She lost about $280,000. And the way that happened was she was trading in crypto, and she'd been doing it for years and years and years. And one day she got a phone call that said, hey, this is Coinbase, which is a very popular crypto exchange. And we noticed some weird security issues on your account. Now, this is a very, very common tactic that hackers will take, where they'll say, we noticed an issue, and they will supply the remedy for that issue. And in this case, unfortunately, Maggie let them onto her computer and said, oh my gosh, security, of course. And they're like, okay, we're going to lock down all of your accounts. And she watched in front of her them just draining her online accounts. And she, even to this day, she says to me, Tanya, I don't know what I was thinking. It just happened. She wasn't a client of mine then, but she was like, I don't know what I was thinking. They just did it right in front of my eyes. And so in that specific case, I would have said to Maggie, please just shut down your computer and walk away, because what that would do is it would completely cut off the internet, and then the online scammer couldn't get back on her computer. So that was a big situation. And she was actually the impetus for why I called this protect your wealth and health, because after that loss, she said she couldn't get out of bed. So had she put in these really, really, really practical steps, she could have prevented all of that. So another one, Susie and Johan. So they're aged 82 to 83. They actually held up a check in front of their webcam. So if anybody ever asks you to hold up a check, don't do it. They lost $10,000 from their bank account because the hacker read their bank account and drained some funds. And obviously the money was a big deal, but the biggest nuisance after that was actually they kept getting called, because they did, in fact, after they held up the check, they were like, wait, what are we doing? And they backed out of it, thankfully, but they kept getting calls. I think it was like 10 to 20 calls per day for 3 weeks after that. And so obviously that's an incredibly stressful situation. So in their case, what it was a pop-up that came up on their screen that was like, call this number right now. You're having issues with your computer. And they called the number. I would say that is a big, big, big mistake. Never call the number. It's not real. Whatever threats that are happening are only threats if you call the number. So if you don't engage, there's no issue. But hackers, they want you to engage and reel you in, just like the big bad wolf, to get you to come inside and to engage with them so they can take money, in this case, $10,000. Now, this third case study is incredibly interesting. Joanne and her friend, ages 68 to 71, they lost airline tickets. Now, that isn't such a big deal, but the way it happened is really interesting. So they were in a big panic. They were in a big rush to buy airline tickets. And they Googled phone number, I think it was United Airlines. And this is called malvertising, because Google isn't actually scanning all their search results. What you have to look out for is, like I was saying in that previous slide, the chase versus chase. They clicked on a link that was very similar to United Airlines, but not quite. And they called the number, and they got a guy on the other end who's like, sure, let me take care of all your airline ticket needs, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it was 2 weeks where they were going back and forth with this guy. They never got their airline tickets. They did thankfully get a refund, and I'll tell you how. This is actually very, very sweet and interesting. The hacker emailed my client and said, I'm sorry, there's a delay. I've had an issue with my family. And by that time, my client had realized we've been scammed. And she emailed back and she said, you and your family are in my prayers. And the next day, he sent their money back. So let's remember that these hackers are, in fact, people. They've just chosen the dark path. They're doing a job. It's a criminal job, but they're doing a job, and they are people. So in that case, I think the takeaway really is just be kind to these people. As rough as it is, be kind. And it may end up that they return your money. Don't retaliate. That's not good. She wanted to, but I said, don't retaliate. It'll just make things worse. All right, the last case study is a client of mine, Pauline, who is 79 years old. She lost $250,000 from her Schwab account. And this is another instance where she got a phone call and they said, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was to the tune of, you're in trouble. You need to do this right away. And so she did it. And unfortunately, her Schwab agent didn't question it. And her account was almost drained. So, she's going to recoup that, of course, but it really freaked her out. And she wasn't even able to do online sessions with me. She said, Tanya, I have to do in person. It just freaks me out too much to be on my computer, not knowing what's what. So those are, sad news. I don't like talking about these case studies, but they're here. I'm sharing them with you to inform you of what's out there and what you can do to prevent these situations. So I'd like you to ask yourself a few questions, and you can use the Q&A chat box at the bottom of the screen if you have any questions, but I want to ask yourself some questions. What online financial accounts do I want to protect? So what online financial accounts do I want to protect? Second question, what social media accounts would I be embarrassed by if they were hacked? A lot of my clients get their Facebook accounts hacked. Which ones would you want to protect? Because it would be embarrassing if they were hacked. Lastly, what email accounts would be a headache if they were hacked? Email is one of the #1 ways that hackers get to us. And that's my presentation for today.
Excellent. Thank you, Tanya. That was fantastic. Well, a couple of things too. I've got a number of questions. So just to remind you that anybody that has questions, you can go ahead and go to the Q&A icon at the bottom and type in your question. And I've got some good ones. So Tanya, let's go ahead and get right into those, since again, we want to try to get to as many of these as we can. So I think you addressed this a little bit, but Terry asked, have password manager apps ever been hacked? And I think you mentioned that a few have, but the one that you had mentioned had not been. So is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we can never be 100% certain. There's that concept in security, online security in general. You can never be 100%, but LastPass specifically is a password manager that has been hacked multiple times since since going live in 2013. 1Password has not. And maybe I can share that resource on 1Password's security with Paul Ried when we're doing the replay as one of the resources. There's a very good article about 1Password and their security. They have not been hacked, and goes very public very quickly. That is actually my number one question: is like, what happens if these password managers get hacked? But it's a balancing act. Are you more or less secure using a password manager? If you're someone who reuses their passwords, if you don't change your passwords, if they aren't strong and unique, maybe 1Password is a solution for you because it can help increase your security. And you are putting your trust in 1Password, but I've used them for a long time. They're working 24/7 to protect their clients' accounts, and they set it up in a way where your main password is not stored or connected in any way to your online accounts. So they try to anonymize the information as much as they can so that even if they get hacked, the hacker isn't going to get anything.
Great. So Lynn asks, how safe do you think Google Manager is to save passwords?
Yeah, okay. So Google Manager is only, think about it this way, it's only as safe as the password that you use to get into your Gmail account. So what I would say in that case is make sure that your Gmail account, which is sort of like the main password that they would use to get into your all of your Google services, including Google Password Manager, I would say make that password incredibly secure, 12 characters, special characters, upper and lowercase letters, numbers, something unique, not a slight variation on others. And then add two-step verification. If you Google two-step verification, that will put you in the right direction. But adding those extra layers of protection is why I like 1Password so much. So if you can do that with Google Password Manager, I think you're in a much better position. The other thing you have to consider is that now your passwords live in your internet browser. So you have to be incredibly careful on what you do on your internet browser, what you allow, the extensions you might install. If you don't know what extensions are, don't worry about it. But anytime you get an allow message or don't allow, always default to don't allow. And get Malwarebytes, which could scan your computer for any bad actors, because they will be able to use that internet browser to get to your passwords.
Great. So Chris asks, I use LastPass currently. If I move to 1Password, can you do an initial upload from LastPass to 1Password for current passwords?
You can actually, if you go to 1password.com, I'm pretty sure they've had this message since the last data breach. They still have a message at the top. They give you a discount and they give you steps to transfer directly from LastPass to 1Password. And if you need any support, you can always reach out to me as well.
Very good. We'll keep going here. Mary asks, looking at my inbox, I see a spam folder on only one email account out of 5. Where else might I find this?
Can you repeat that one more time, Tim? I think I understand.
Yeah, so looking at my inbox, I see a spam folder on only one email account out of the 5 that she has. Where else can she find, I'm assuming, the spam folder or the inbox folder?
I am going to guess here that the person is using Apple Mail, which is Apple's default program. And they have at the top, they should have a little section that says favorites. And there's a little plus sign that you can click. And then from that window that pops up, you can select all junk or all spam. I think it might just be what I'm saying is I think it might just be a view thing in the mail program itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Larry asks, if you've been a victim of cyber crime, right, and you had your information hacked, ultimately the question is, what steps do you need to take to protect yourself, right? For instance, he brings up reporting it to credit agencies. But the question ultimately is, I'll expand the question, Larry, is what other steps, Tanya, should be done, if any? And then second, if you report it to one credit agency, do they automatically share that with the other two? Or do you have to report your, credit has been, or your information has been hacked to all three credit agencies?
Yeah, I would not default to bureaucracy. Definitely report to all. Change if you know the source account that was hacked. So I think what we're talking about two different things. Are we talking about an identity fraud, or are we talking about a hack where they have which one do you think there, Tim?
Yeah,
I can address both.
My guess is their financial information has been compromised,
Okay.
credit cards, those type of things. So what
Taken out,
steps
yeah.
do they take? Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Definitely report to all three. If it's a credit card, I mean, I think it goes without saying, but close the credit card. I don't think you necessarily have to close the online accounts, but if you can, that might be a good move as well. It depends how deep it goes, right? So if you discover that your bank account information was compromised, your credit card information was compromised, and potentially they were taking out credit cards on your behalf, yeah, you want to go full throttle. Report to all the credit card agencies, close the credit cards, make a list using your statements of all the accounts where you need to add a new credit card, and close the bank accounts as well after you take out the assets. I mean, obviously this could go very deep, but I would say err on the side of caution. You can always reach out to me and I can help investigate as well. There's a little bit of investigation that can happen where I can figure out how deep it goes. If it's just, let's say, for example, it's on the easy side, the simple side, it's just a credit card issue. If it was just a credit card that was tapped, I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you start using something like PayPal. Now, it's not accepted everywhere, of course, but the source of that credit card hack was most likely a place where you don't normally use your credit card. And if you would use PayPal, it would obfuscate, it would mask your credit card number. So there's no way for that website to see it. And then if you were to get all of your online subscriptions, on that PayPal, then you only have to change your credit card in one place. So there's that end. And then I think the other thing I want to mention is if it was an online attack, if you can figure out the source of the hack, say it was, for example, Amazon. What's your password for Amazon, and where else do you use that same password? If you use that same password or a variation in other places, change all the accounts that use that variation.
Great.
So you really want to think about it like what's the source, and then work your way up from there.
Okay. Another question is, are you familiar with Permission Slip, the Permission Slip app that was created by Consumer Reports, and what are your thoughts of that, if you are?
That's a really great question. I have not heard of Permission Slip app before.
Okay.
I'm tempted to Google it right now and answer the question. Let's go on to the next one.
Yeah. So, and you're still showing your screen, just so you know. But
Okay.
let's see here. Terry asks, is data saved in the iCloud safe? So what are your thoughts of iCloud, and is the data that's stored there safe?
We'll go back to the other question real quick. Permission Slip app by Consumer Reports. I'm in favor of Consumer Reports. I think they do a good job. B, I would just ask, what information do they ask of you when you use this? Because if it's just your email and your name, great. I use something similar, which I didn't mention, which is Insignio's product, but these products are becoming more popular where they scan the internet for you and delete your information, your personal data on sites. And it looks like in this case, this app will offer you a suggestion. Either you can keep your information with that company, or you can send a request to delete the account. So thumbs up for this one. Permission Slip by Consumer Reports sounds awesome.
Very good.
So
So
what was this next question? Sorry.
Yeah, another couple questions. This will just really, because we're getting a lot of them. So probably best to kind of share a little bit about what your company does, Tanya. Obviously, how do people get in contact with you? What's the experience that they have if they should reach out, that kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah. For the questions that went unanswered, I do want to share this. If you or someone you know has been the victim of a hack or a scam, or you have questions, you just know you are not alone. Hacks and scams happen to even the smartest people. You can email me here, Tanya@techretaries.com. I also accept the old-fashioned call. My number is 206-486-2660. So you can call or you could text. And I'd love to share a little bit about my company. So our company, not only do we do this, we also offer, I want to mention, our online security defense course is in the works, and you can join the wait list. You can go to techretaries.com and join one of the security courses. Highly encourage you to do that. It's going to cover all these topics and more, and you're going to have very practical tips. You're going to feel incredibly powerful, and you're going to feel like you have all the cyber defense tools you need. And in terms of what our company does, we provide tech support to, like I mentioned, retirees. We work hourly and one-on-one, or we also have packages available. And if you go to techretaries.com, you can click the schedule online button, and we offer 30 minutes free consult. So that's the best way to get started, just to talk about your needs, what you're looking for, and then we can go from there.
Great.
Yeah.
Do you have time for a few more questions here? We have about 3 or 4 more minutes. So
I would love to.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's see here. So get to the last one here. So Bob asked, do you keep a backup record of all your passwords, or do you trust the manager 100%?
I trust the manager 100%. I don't keep a backup of records. If I would keep a backup, I would export. You could easily set up, on your to-do list, kind of like, doing the laundry. You could, every week, back up your passwords. I mean, you're definitely capable of doing that. You can easily export them, but I don't personally do that, no.
So Cindy asks, are all password managers online?
No,
No.
that's a great question. There is one called Keeper. The advantage, of course, of having your password manager online is that will sync between multiple devices. So you have your Charles Schwab, I think Adam asked this, you have your Charles Schwab account information on your computer. What happens if you go travel and you need to get into that account? You can add the password manager to your phone and get into that account while you're away. You don't have to do that, but it's just a matter of convenience, to each their own. If you prefer to just have your passwords protected in a password manager just on your computer, you can use, I don't know, I think Keeper is available on PC as well, but that's another one. It's called Keeper, and you can choose not to sync them between devices.
And password manager, that extends not just for the computer, but it's also for your cell phone. Is that correct?
Yeah, so in the case of 1Password, it will sync the same passwords between the two devices. And that 1Password that you chose to set up 1Password will open the password manager on your computer or on your phone. And I think I forgot to mention this, but it autofills the password for you. So you never have to remember the password. You don't have to read the password. It will just autofill it for you. But of course, before it does that, it always asks you for, in the case of the cell phone, your Face ID or your thumbprint or your master password that you used to get in.
Great. A few more here if we can get under the wire.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Can you address Wi-Fi security, weak passwords and such? I mean, how do you protect yourself with the Wi-Fi side of things?
Yeah. Wi-Fi, I mean, that is a big topic, but if I trimmed it back to the bare essentials, make sure your equipment's updated. So if you're going to your Wi-Fi, I'm assuming this person's going to their Wi-Fi symbol and it says, hey, you have a weak password, upgrade that router. The other thing I would do is just make sure, if you can, that the name of the Wi-Fi isn't your address. That's a big one. Or something that's familiar, like your full name. And then in terms of the Wi-Fi password, again, you want to use something that's unique enough, but it's a tricky one because you're balancing convenience and security at that point, because you want people to be able to type in the Wi-Fi password when they need it. But try to choose something that is unique in 12 characters with numbers. That's what I do. You could do backwards words, things like that. So, but the top thing with Wi-Fi is upgrading that equipment. That's the big one. And if you use Xfinity's equipment or CenturyLink, you can just call them and say, hey, I need new equipment. And they will not advocate for your security of your Wi-Fi. So you need to advocate for yourself and simply say, I need upgraded equipment.
Yeah.
Or I need a tech to come out and upgrade the security on this thing.
Yeah. So one last question, this will be the last one, is that Mark asked, any recommendations for people who travel and use wireless to connect remotely?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite question. I get that a lot. You don't want to be tethered to your home security. VPN. So you want to get, I mentioned Malwarebytes before. They actually have an app called Malwarebytes Privacy VPN. So they have a really good VPN, and all it really is when you turn on the VPN, it's an app on your phone, or you can get it for your computer as well. When you turn it on, I'm going to use that word obfuscate again. It kind of cloaks your IP address and who you are and encrypts all the information. So think about it this way. When you're traveling and you're on a hotel Wi-Fi, you're just swimming in the public pool. You're just out there. All your information is out there with everybody else. And you're just keeping your fingers crossed that there's nobody on the hotel Wi-Fi that is a bad actor. When you add the VPN, you are now in your own private pool. You're still swimming with everybody else. You're still using that same Wi-Fi, but you're in your own private pool and you're protected and encrypted, and you have a curtain over your information.
Yeah.
So Malwarebytes Privacy VPN, it's a good one. NordVPN is another good one as well. But having that on while you're on the public Wi-Fi is a great way to protect yourself.
Great. Well, Tanya, thank you so much. So great information.
Thank you.
And we didn't get to all the questions. So for those folks that we didn't get to, either somebody in our team will reach out, or maybe even we'll have Tanya reach out for some of the more technical ones. Maybe we were not equipped, but
please feel free.
But again, Tanya is a great resource, and thank you, Tanya, for your expertise and for sharing that with our clients and our friends. Just a couple of quick things.
Thank you.
Password management question. How do most people store passwords currently? Let's see here. 42% said on paper. 28% said on a digital document or a spreadsheet somewhere. 30% password manager. So that's great. Those are the big three. So if you're curious about how the question came out and the responses. And then the last thing is that, like I said, we put these events on it, everybody, as it relates to our educational series. And the next one is slated for our next event is May 21st. So May 21st at 10:30. We're working on the next content, planning on maybe something with wills and trusts, something, the state basics. So working on getting an attorney to join us for that one, and that should be really informative. So we'll do one in May and another one later in the year, followed up by our Keystone event, right, which will be the event up at Newcastle. So take advantage of those. Again, share the content if you feel like this is helpful with friends and colleagues and associates. And if there's anything that questions that come up, obviously, that isn't addressed, certainly use us as a resource. So Tanya, thank you again. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a wonderful afternoon. Take care.